The panelists who were selected are an information technology worker, an English teacher, an oncology nurse, a sales professional, a software engineer, and 2 lawyers. 11 more people still need to be picked before opening statements begin as early as next week. Today is Monday, April 15th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. The first 7 jurors for Donald Trump's hush money trial have been chosen after lawyers grilled members of the jury pool about their social media posts, political views, and personal lives. The questioning was designed to help decide whether they can sit in fair judgment of the former president. The panelists who were selected are an information technology worker, an English teacher, an oncology nurse, a sales professional, a software engineer, and 2 lawyers. 11 more people still need to be picked before opening statements begin as early as next week. The Manhattan case accuses the Republican of falsifying business records to cover up a sex scandal during his 2016 campaign. Trump has denied any wrongdoing. Israel is vowing to retaliate against Iran, even though such a mission carries many risks. Any direct attack on Iranian soil would risk prompting an all-out war between the 2 foes at a time when Israel is focused on defeating Hamas in Gaza. It would also risk isolating Israel internationally. Analysts tell the Associated Press that Israel is enjoying a moment of international support after putting down Iran's attack over the weekend in tandem with a coalition of international allies. But they say if Israel decides to strike Iranian soil, it could jeopardize that goodwill and increase Israel's isolation. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators have blocked freeways and bridges in Illinois, California, New York, and the Pacific Northwest, temporarily shutting down travel into Chicago O'Hare International Airport, onto the Golden Gate and Brooklyn bridges, and on a busy West Coast interstate. In Chicago, the Monday morning protest caused headaches for some travelers who left their cars to walk to the airport. Protesters linked arms and blocked traffic on lanes of Interstate 190 around 7 a.m. in a demonstration they said was part of a global economic blockade to free Palestine. Similar demonstrations blocked all traffic onto the Golden Gate Bridge and on Interstate 5 in Eugene, Oregon. House impeachment managers have walked 2 articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas across the Capitol to the Senate, forcing senators to convene a trial. The allegations against Mayorkas are that he has willfully and systematically refused to enforce immigration laws at the U.S.-Mexico border. The proceedings triggered by Tuesday's action may not last long. Democrats are expected to try to dismiss or table the charges this week before arguments start. Republicans want a full trial. Speaker Mike Johnson says Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer should convene a trial to hold those who engineered this crisis to full account. Schumer says impeachment shouldn't be used to settle policy disagreements. President Joe Biden's latest plan for student loan cancellation is moving forward as a proposed regulation, offering him a fresh chance to deliver on a campaign promise and energize young voters ahead of the November election. The Education Department on Tuesday filed paperwork for a new regulation that would deliver the cancellation the Democratic president announced last week. The regulation has to go through a public comment period and another review before it can be finalized. The regulation is a more targeted proposal than the one the Supreme Court struck down last year. Conservative opponents are threatening to challenge the new plan, which seeks to cancel or reduce loans for 25 million Americans. House Speaker Mike Johnson has pushed back against mounting Republican anger over his proposed U.S. aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and other allies. He also rejected a call on Tuesday to step aside or risk a vote to oust him from office. Johnson said he is not resigning after a testy morning meeting of House Republicans at the Capitol. The embattled Republican speaker pressed ahead for voting this week on the U.S. national security aid package, a situation that would force him to rely on Democrats to help pass it. But as night fell, Johnson's resolve collided with GOP opposition, and he was meeting late into the night with lawmakers on other options. President Joe Biden has made a nostalgic return to the House, where he grew up in working-class Scranton, kicking off 3 days of campaigning across Pennsylvania by calling for higher taxes on the rich and casting Donald Trump as an out-of-touch elitist. When the Democratic president wasn't trying to blunt the populist appeal of his Republican predecessor's comeback bid, he appeared to savor his trip down memory lane. Biden is looking to gain ground in a key battleground state, while Trump spends much of the week in a New York City courtroom for his first criminal trial. Biden heads to Pittsburgh on Wednesday and Philadelphia on Thursday. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell cautioned that persistently elevated inflation will likely delay any Fed interest rate cuts until later this year, opening the door to a period of higher for longer rates. Recent data have clearly not given us greater confidence that inflation is coming fully under control, and instead indicate that it's likely to take longer than expected to achieve that confidence, Powell said during a panel discussion. If higher inflation does persist, he said, we can maintain the current level of interest rates for as long as needed. His comments suggested that without further evidence that inflation is falling, the central bank will likely carry out fewer than the 3/4 point reductions its officials had forecast in March. The talk before the opening ceremony of the Paris Games ideally should be about its grandiose backdrop, a summer sun setting on the Seine River as athletes drift by in boats and wave to cheering crowds. But behind the romantic veneer that Paris has long curated, mounting security concerns already have had an impact on the unprecedented open-air event. Around 30,000 police officers are expected to be deployed each day, with 45,000 working the opening ceremony. Security and transportation are the biggest concerns heading into the Paris Games, which run from July 26th, August 11th. Around 9 million tickets have been sold. Today's news has been reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at the Dunkley Report.